Hello, welcome to or back to my channel. This is from Jansley. I'm child free by choice. 10 reasons I'm not having kids. Now you know classically Abby, Ben Shapiro's sister, telling everybody they need to have kids. They should have kids. Women were meant to be mothers. But here's a different look at that.
So I don't have kids, nor do I plan on having any. In fact, I got a vasectomy to ensure that it doesn't happen. But now that I'm 32, a lot of my friends are deciding to have kids now. And while I'm happy for them, I'm realizing that my path to fulfillment and happiness doesn't look like theirs. And so in this video, I'm going to share 10 big reasons why I decided to choose a child-free lifestyle and why.
Exactly. Not everybody's life looks the same.
You may want to as well. So number one is there's no pull or drive for me to want to have kids. So ever since I was 16, I never really wanted kids. And people would often tell me, oh, you'll change your mind once you get older. Well, I'm 32, almost 33, and I still feel exactly the same way. I just don't have any intrinsic desire to have kids. Number two, kids are expensive. So between clothes, education, healthcare, and food, all the necessities, kids are just crazy expensive. My mom told me that they probably spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on me, especially when you factor in that they paid for my undergrad education, which I'm immensely grateful for. But when I think about how much kids cost, I'm like, I would rather that money go towards something else that I enjoy. That leads beautifully to number three, which is I like to travel. And by the time you're watching this, I'm going to be in Thailand, and I'm spending a whole month in Thailand, which I'm ecstatic for.
Also, another reason people are not having kids now, at least for me, is look at the world the way it is now. People send their kids to school, and because of trigger warning, gun violence, they don't know if their kids are going to come home or not. Why risk that? You know? And the economic conditions of so many, they can afford kids.
This is a good question to answer. What's the best way to pull cash out of my home? I don't want to change my mortgage rate, but I really need extra cash to pay off my credit cards.
You know what? This question...
So the world has a problem. We're not having enough.
Okay, and this is Andre Geek. Why our generation stopped having kids.
Kids, especially in the richest of countries. And this is something that could have huge effects for our economy, our society, and our future. And that's probably because even while they're still in the womb, kids are really expensive. That's weird. Okay, so bad magic tricks aside, here's the really crazy part. No one seems to agree on what's really causing this decline, or even what we should be doing about it. Last year, the U.S. fertility rate hit an all-time low of 1.62 births per woman. That's the lowest birth rate since the government started tracking the statistic in the 1930s. But back in the 50s, the fertility rate was about 3.7 births per woman. And you need at least 2.1 births just to keep the population steady. And it's not just the US dealing with this problem, it's the entire world. Countries like Japan, Italy, Germany, they're all seeing similar drops. Japan, for example, recorded its lowest number of births ever. And Italy has actually declared a national state of emergency because their birth rate is so low. But it gets even worse when you zoom out and you look at the global picture. According to the Pew Research Center, population growth is projected to flatline by the year 2100. And in some countries, it's already happening. South Korea's fertility rate, for example, dropped to 0.72 and didn't want to have kids. And 56% said they just didn't want to. The other half said it was for a variety of different reasons, like medical, financial, having no partner, age, climate change, or their partner just didn't want to have kids, and generally the state of the world.
For me, I have to tell myself, would it be selfish for me to have kids with the world being the way it is now? Or should I just do it anyway? I mean, which would have been more selfish?
And one really surprising reason that kept showing up throughout all the different studies that I looked at across all the different countries was that trouble finding a partner was at 15% of the people surveyed, which is really weird considering the average person spends almost an hour a day on their dating apps. It's now a lot easier than ever before to meet people thanks to apps like Tinder, POF, Bumble, eHarmony, and apps like that. But people also say, despite how easy it is to get a date, it's becoming a lot harder to find a partner for the long term to have kids with, and one of the reasons why is because of the very same technology that was supposed to help us. In fact, Pew Research found that 75% of the people they polled said it was either very or somewhat difficult to find someone in the past year, either because they had trouble approaching them or that person didn't meet their expectations.
Another reason, contrary to what certain conservative influencers would have you believe, not all men are good. In fact, look at Josh Duggar. I mean, Christian poster child. Look what happened then.
All of which led to a burnout for a variety of different reasons that I'm sure most of us experienced at some point, like being ghosted and or lied to, rejected, feeling like you're having a repetitive conversation all the time. But what's interesting to me about all these studies is that these apps, which ultimately are just tools that were meant to bring us closer together, are also the tools that keep us far apart. And I think so much of that is because social media isn't real. It's surface level marketing, and it's hard to find authentic connections when it just seems like some.
And another reason, social media. I mean, before social media, before the internet, bullying ended when you got in your house. But now, it doesn't. Do you know how much that does to someone's self-esteem?
One better is just a swipe away, leading to pretty grim statistics like 1 in 5 people lying about their age, 1 in 7 lying about their income, 1 in 8 lying about their job, all of which has led to a decline in mental health, leaving people feeling 3 times more stressed than people who don't use these dating apps at all.
You can go on 3 dates with someone and have an amazing time and then never hear from them again.
A lot of the times apps lead us to undervalue people that we'd actually like in real life and overvalue people we wouldn't give a second thought to.
Like, I know people that have met the love of their life on these apps, but also like the overwhelming sentiment toward these apps is they don't work.
So that's one major reason why people aren't having as many kids, but there's another big reason. Money. I wanted to know, how much does it cost to become a parent? And I found that raising a child in the US is expensive. Including the...
Are you tired of your YouTube channel not getting the attention it deserves? Building a YouTube channel can be a very lucrative and successful way to make new fans or sell your product.
$50,000, including the cost of everything, factoring education and a bigger house for a bigger family. That's not even the crazy part. The crazy part is that those studies were done between the years 2014 and 2017. So factoring inflation since 2017 means that the new estimate would be a lot closer to $1 million. And in the US, 64% of young adults who are not having as many kids as they'd like to say that it's childcare costs that are the major reason why. Childcare costs are growing at almost twice the rate of inflation. And it's not just an American problem either. It's a global problem. In Britain, for example,
most people in this country and other countries are not privileged enough to afford daycare or stay home with their kids. You are a privileged few if you get to do that.
couples spend over 20% of their salaries on childcare. And I think we can all agree that it's not getting any easier for millennials or Gen Z who are already struggling with student debt, high housing costs, stagnant wages, and record levels of credit card debt. And when I look at the overall big picture of how much the world has changed its mind about having kids in the last 20 years, it blew my mind. Back in 2003, 83% of people said they wanted to be a parent. Fast forward to 2024, and that number dropped to 51%. In Canada, the numbers tell a similar story. In 2001, only 7% of Canadians said they didn't want kids. But by 2022, that number jumped to 34%. So these numbers show that there's a massive cultural shift in how younger generations are thinking about their future.
Okay, I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go to another creator. Sorry about that.
Everything you watch, everything you read, everything you listen to, and every class you take is trying to convince you of something. The professor has a goal. The professor has an opinion, and they want to convince you of that opinion too. It's your responsibility to learn how to recognize it. Get good at hearing the bias in everything presented to you, whether it be on your own side or someone else's. You can practice that now with everything you watch. The movies and TV shows that you're watching that you might think, oh, this is just a storyline and this is just a character making decisions. But then you have to remember someone is writing that storyline for a reason. Kindergarten, right? We're seeing it with transgender ideology, with woke ideology from the time kids are tiny. I mean, my husband and I have talked a lot about how it's so important to us. We're discussing homeschooling, which is something we never thought we would do. We had kind of written that off as something, oh, that's for other people. And now we have our own son, another one on the way. And we're thinking, you know, what's really important is me being involved, me being the one who's actually imparting knowledge to my children instead of someone who has a bias, someone who has a goal and is trying to, you know, indoctrinate my child. And then we're seeing that in college.
Excuse me, do you not think Republicans, conservatives, indoctrinate?
Colleges too. You know, it's not just little children who are being indoctrinated. It's 18-year-olds. 18-year-olds think they've got it all figured out. They've got nothing figured out, to be honest. And when you go into college thinking you know everything, and then your teachers are presenting things as fact, you're going to be in the same exact scenario as you were when you were in public school as a 2-year-old, ready and willing to take whatever is said to you as complete fact. And that's a big mistake and a big problem.
It's a big mistake.
Not all of us. I had a very conservative professor in college. She tried to indoctrinate us every day, in my opinion. But guess what? I was a hardcore liberal, and that Texas Republican BS was just not gonna fly with me. Sorry.
This issue is personal to me because I get emails every day to my show from parents who have sent their children off to school because you got to go to college to get a good job. You know, we've all been told that line our whole lives. And their daughter comes home from school, their son comes home from school, unrecognizable for the child they raised. And they're just heartbroken. Jesse, I don't understand how this could happen. Your 18-year-old is not fully formed. Your 18-year-old is pliable. He's just clay.
Totally. I hate seeing that because I think a lot of people don't realize how far the colleges and universities have gone as far as being to the left. I mean, I think I just did a stat in that speech you showed about how 98% of, I don't remember which university it was, but 98% of the staff and professors at this university donated to Democrat candidates in 2020. And I mean, that's very indicative of what they are trying to sell you and sell your children. So I think this naivete about how...
Okay, Abby, what are you trying to sell? Because when I look at your videos, you're trying to sell me, in my opinion. Have babies, get married. This will solve all your problems. When we're meant to be mothers. Okay, all of that might be true for some people, but not everybody.
Everyone needs to go to college, which, by the way, I hate that as a standard. I think that that's a really bad standard, given that most people who are going to college nowadays have no idea what they want to study. So they just go and put themselves in debt and study something that is totally irrelevant to whatever they're going to do in the future. I think that is a...
Okay, this is not true for everybody. Maybe you, Abby, who went to Manhattan School of Music, and maybe you fall into that category, but those of us who know reality, know how hard life can be, we are taught to get a career that will support us and potentially kids down the road. Because a man may or may not stick by you.
Problem in and of itself. And then you have people going and not knowing that they're going to be indoctrinated. So you can prepare your kids as much as you can, but an 18-year-old is still an 18-year-old, and putting them in the belly of the beast is just a recipe for disaster.
When I was 18, I was put with a very conservative teacher, and everything she said went in through one of my ears and out the other, because I knew it was BS even then. conservative ideology. Sorry.
As far as your children actually coming out as conservatives and well-informed conservatives at that.
Yeah, imagine dropping $100,000 to put your child in that just so they can find themselves, or whatever hippie crap they say nowadays about college. All right, I want to focus on something different. You went to the Manhattan School of Music and you sang opera. Now that sounds like it has to be the most calming environment in the history of mankind. What was that like?
Yeah, I would say that's about right. The day after Trump was elected, many people on the staff and many students showed up in black. They showed up wearing mourning clothes as if they were grieving, and a lot of our professors excused us from class if it was just too emotional. I'm not going to lie and deny the fact that I definitely took advantage of that just to get a day off of school, but many students actually needed that. That was kind of the environment that I was in, and it meant that I, who was on the right, obviously, conservative, I felt like I couldn't say a word about my beliefs because I knew I would be blacklisted. I mean, people talked about politics openly, but only if...
Abby, I have never, ever heard of somebody being blacklisted or rejected because they're conservative. Sorry. And, try being a liberal student in the South. Try that.
You were on the left. And that's kind of a thing I talk about a lot, is that I don't believe people need to talk about politics in the workplace. I think that's a big mistake, actually. But if you are going to talk about politics in the workplace, if that's something that has been okayed by everybody, you can't just have it be on one side or the other. You have to be able to have a conversation. And so in my space of, obviously, the arts, opera, it meant everyone was talking about politics, but only if you were on the left. And it silenced all of those of us who were on the right, which was a fair number of people, but none of us actually knew it until it...
Nobody had to silence you. You're an American, you have a mouth. You have the right to use it. If you were silent, that's on you.
It kind of came out that I was on the right. So it was, it was an environment that bred leftism, and it didn't allow for diversity of thought.
Are we too silent? Because I hear this story a lot, and it's totally understandable. A 18-year-old girl walks onto a college campus and surrounded by people who hate everything she stands for. You're going to shut up. You're going to sit in the back of the class and not say a word. Do we need to try to change that mentality? Should we be more aggressive? Maybe not necessarily on campus, maybe not necessarily in work, but we all talk about going to the family Thanksgiving and liberal Aunt Peggy comes in harping about how much she loves abortion. We all kind of roll our eyes or walk away. Should we let her know that she's full of crap?
So actually, I am maybe going to flip that. I think in a family environment, depending on the situation, it can just be too much to get into like big family political arguments, because sometimes peace in the home is important. Not always, but sometimes. When it comes to abortion, maybe not so much. But in other topics, maybe so. But as far as, what I said about politics in the workplace, what I meant by that is if people are not talking about it at all, that's fine. But I also think that, and I've changed on this. I used to think, just be quiet, just kind of leave it to yourself. You don't have to share your real thoughts on this. But I've since realized that doing this and staying quiet on these things on campus, in your work, is just going to isolate you more and more. And it's going to end up changing your own mind if you're constantly listening to the other side's positions and never challenging yourself to argue with them or to debate or even to say something in a respectful way and present the facts. You're going to end up more and more alone. And so I actually think it's really important to encourage people to actually speak out about their views. Speak out. Say what it is.
I, as a liberal, had a customer hand me a PragerU propaganda, and I was polite to her, but as soon as she left, went in the garbage. Sorry, I don't need that.
Is the truth. We live in a culture war. That's what we're doing right now. We are in a culture war. And if we stay silent, then our children are going to suffer. So I think that now is the time to encourage young people, to encourage really everyone to be brave, speak out, be confident, because these things are going to define the people you spend your time with. And if you build your entire life on silence and someone finds out that you are conservative, finds out that you're on the other side of the aisle, and that could destroy your life, I mean, that's an incredibly stressful position to be in. And I would not encourage that for anyone, whether that be a college student or a grown.
Yeah, I live in Texas and I feel the same way, except I'm a liberal. Think about that, Abby.
Person.
Yeah. Abby, that was awesome. Come back soon. I appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Are you tired of watching your beloved nation fall prey to the insidious?
Please like, comment. Want to hear what you think. What do you think about this?
I had no idea my wife was doing this behind my back. After coming back from a work trip, I came home to...
I take Ocrevus.
I take Ocrevus.
We take Ocrevus.